We sent Walter White to a fictional AI therapy session. This entire session, from the dialogue to the psychological analysis, was written entirely by AI. The format is simple: a therapy session, followed by clinical commentary and final diagnosis. So let's begin and see what unfolds when the chemistry teacher turned meth kingpin, Heisenberg, meets the therapist.
Good afternoon, Walter. I'm glad you came in today. What made you decide to seek therapy now?
Let's just say things are complicated. I was diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 3A. That's when everything changed. You hear something like that and it's like a switch flips. Suddenly, all the things you've swallowed your whole life, they come rushing back. So I started cooking meth.
That's unexpected. Can you help me understand how you made that decision?
I was a high school chemistry teacher, underpaid, underappreciated. My family was drowning, and I was already dead inside. So I thought, why not? If I'm going out, let me leave something behind. Something real.
When you say something real, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Control, power, respect. For once in my life, I didn't want to feel small. I wanted to matter. I was tired of blending into the background, tired of being the guy no one listened to, no one feared. I wanted to walk into a room and have people feel it, to stop apologizing for existing.
How long have you felt that way?
Always, since forever. I co-founded a company once, Gray Matter, walked away early, took a small payout. They made billions. I became a teacher. I told myself I chose the noble path, that I was better than them. But every night I'd sit in that goddamn classroom and think, how did I become so insignificant?
What do you feel when you think about that version of yourself?
Weak, pathetic, like a joke. Like I was just watching from the sidelines while everyone else lived. Always second-guessing. Always swallowing it down.
And now?
Now, I'm not him anymore. I'm done being that weak, invisible man. Now, I'm the one who knocks. The one who decides who gets in and who stays out. The one who makes the rules instead of following them.
What does being the one who knocks give you that you didn't have before?
Fear. From others. And that means I'm finally seen. There's this moment when someone realizes who they're really dealing with. That flash of recognition in their eyes. That's the moment I live for now. Not because I want to hurt people. It's not that. It's because in that moment, I exist. Not as a background extra, not as a footnote, as the main event.
That sounds powerful.
Yeah, it is. And terrifying. Power messes with you. Shows you sides of yourself you don't want to see. But that kind of fear, that kind of loneliness, still beats the alternative. 'Cause fading away without a sound, that's worse than any cancer.
Before we continue, let's pause. Here's what our therapist has observed so far.
What we're seeing is a man whose identity has been quietly eroded over time. By failure, by missed opportunities, and by a deep sense of being overlooked. Walter speaks with composure, but beneath it lies resentment and a lifelong feeling of not being enough. His reaction to the cancer wasn't sadness or fear. It was a plan. Immediate, calculated, and illegal. That suggests he processes emotion through action, through intellect, not vulnerability. Control is his coping mechanism. He didn't say he wanted to survive. He said,
I wanted to matter.
That distinction is crucial. It tells me his core issue isn't fear of death. It's fear of insignificance. The story about gray matter reveals how deeply he's still wounded. There's clear evidence of narcissistic injury, a belief that he was denied what he deserved, and that the world owes him recognition. That belief fuels his transformation. When he says,
I'm the one who knocks.
it's not ego, it's existential. Power is the only thing that makes him feel seen. At this point, I'm considering a working diagnosis. Strong narcissistic traits, possibly with antisocial features. He shows signs of grandiosity, externalizes blame, and justifies harm as necessary. There's little sign of guilt or emotional concern for others. In the next part of the session, I want to push past the persona, especially around his family, how he thinks they see him and whether he still sees them as real people or just parts of his story. Because with narcissistic defenses, the real story is often in what the ego is trying to bury.
Now, let's step back into the therapy room.
Earlier, you said you did all this for your family.
That's right. Everything I've done. I did it for them. Providing, securing their future, making sure they don't end up like me, broke, invisible. That was the whole point, to finally matter for their sake.
And how do you think they see you now?
I think they're afraid. Maybe not just of what I've done, of me. And that's the part I didn't plan for. I gave up everything so they wouldn't have to. Worked in secret, lied, killed. All so they could live without fear, without want. But now, they look at me like I'm what they need saving from. All they see is a villain.
Do you think they're wrong?
Depends on your definition of villain.
What's yours?
Someone who hurts people for no reason. I always had a reason. That's not me. I always had a reason. Always I was doing what needed to be done.
So the ends justify the means?
In this world, intentions don't mean a damn thing. Only results. People respect outcomes, not morals. You think I didn't try the right way? I did. It just left me with nothing.
And your son? Your wife?
They don't understand. They can't. They've never felt powerless, never had to shrink themselves just to get through a day. They've never known what it's like to feel invisible. I carried that feeling for decades.
Did you ever tell them?
No. What would that even do? Saying it doesn't change it. Vulnerability doesn't buy respect. You want respect, you show strength. You hold your ground.
But connection isn't built on fear. It's built on vulnerability.
That's rich. You want me to fall apart so I can feel close to them? That's not who I am. I didn't choose fear. It chose me. The moment I realized people only listen when they're afraid, that was the moment everything clicked. You think that makes me a monster? Maybe. But at least now I'm seen. And sometimes, that's the only thing that matters.
Another pause. Here's where the therapist stands after the second layer of conversation.
This part of the session exposed a deeper crack in Walter's persona. When asked about his family, he immediately leaned on sacrifice.
Everything I've done, I did it for them.
That's a common defense in morally compromised individuals, reframing control as care. But then came something more honest.
I think they're afraid.
He recognizes that he's become not a protector, but a source of fear. And yet, instead of guilt, what surfaces is anger.
I gave up everything.
He feels betrayed by their judgment. When he says villain,
All they see is a villain.
he's projecting what he fears they see in him. Rather than reflect, he rationalizes.
I always had a reason.
This is moral distancing, justifying harm as necessary, which echoes both narcissistic defenses and antisocial traits. His view, if it had a purpose, it wasn't wrong. When asked about opening up to his wife or son, he rejected the idea outright.
Vulnerability doesn't buy respect.
That belief seems ingrained. He sees emotional openness not as intimacy, but as weakness. And when I suggested connection requires vulnerability, his contempt came fast. That wasn't confusion, it was defense. A wall built from shame. Where to go next? I don't want to break the wall. I want to understand what it's hiding. Because men like Walter don't chase power just for its own sake. They chase it to shield something they're terrified to reveal. Earlier, you said your wife and son never felt powerless.
Yeah, they've always had someone looking out for them. That's not a bad thing. It's just not the world I knew. Not the world that shaped me.
What was your world like?
It was small, tight, full of rules, and if you followed them, you were promised things. Respect, security, dignity.
And did you get those things?
I got a name on a staff room door. I got teenagers who couldn't spell the word molecule. I got bills I couldn't pay and a car that wouldn't start in winter. That wasn't respect. It was quiet, slow humiliation. Day after day, like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You don't even realize how deep it goes until one day you wake up and there's nothing left of the person you thought you'd be.
When did that feeling start?
Maybe after I left gray matter, or maybe when I realized I was never going back to that level again. That door had closed, and I just stood there, staring at it.
Do you think you still carry that loss?
I think I carry the part of me that never got to become who he was supposed to be. But it doesn't matter. Now I make decisions. People listen. I have weight.
Even if those decisions come at a cost?
Everything comes at a cost. I just stopped pretending that wasn't true. People lie to themselves to sleep at night. I don't.
How do you think your family sees you now?
Someone they don't quite recognize. But maybe someone they can't ignore. I'm not invisible anymore. Maybe that's better. Maybe not. I haven't decided yet. But at least I exist.
In this part of the session, there's a noticeable shift. Less defensiveness, more introspection. When asked about powerlessness, Walter doesn't react with anger, but reflects inwardly. He describes a world full of rules.
Full of rules.
Where following them promised respect and dignity.
Respect, dignity.
But that promise was broken. Instead of success, he faced what he calls
quiet, slow humiliation.
a deeply felt, lived experience rather than a mere complaint. His reference to gray matter and the realization he wouldn't return to that level highlights profound identity grief, the loss of who he was supposed to become. This mourning goes beyond anger. It's a deep sense of a lost self. Walter now sees himself as someone with influence.
Now I make decisions. People listen.
That's not about money or even crime. It's about agency and visibility, a counter to years of feeling invisible. Yet, there's tension. He acknowledges his family no longer recognizes him, and the final admission,
I haven't decided yet,
reveals his ambivalence. He's unsure if this new self is truly freedom or a protective mask. Next, I want to explore how his relationships and his perspective on the future influence his decision-making and emotional patterns, because these factors are key to understanding the underlying mechanisms of his behavior. You said you're making decisions on your terms now. How do others influence those decisions?
There's someone I deal with. He's messy, unpredictable, not exactly someone you'd want close, but he's there.
What role does he play in your life?
It's not simple. He's like a reflection of all the chaos I try to keep at bay. Sometimes I think I'm trying to control him, but more often I'm just trying not to lose him completely.
What is it about him that keeps you connected, despite everything?
He's messy, chaotic in ways I'm not. Where I'm calculated, he's impulsive. That unpredictability frustrates me, but it also pulls something loose inside. Maybe it's the part of me that's tired of always having to be in control always having to be the smart guy. There's a raw honesty in him, even when he's reckless or lost. It's a kind of freedom I've never allowed myself. He feels things without filters, anger, fear, pain, and I can't help but see that as real. It's like he's living the truth I've buried deep. I stayed because I think, in some twisted way, we balance each other. I hold the plan, he brings the chaos. But beneath that, there's this unspoken need. He needs me to keep him from falling apart, and maybe I need him to remind me that I can break too.
With that kind of fragile balance between control and chaos, how do you think about the future? Are you afraid of what might come next?
Yeah. I think about it more than I let on. The future, it's like standing at the edge of a cliff. You know the fall's coming. Maybe not when, but it's inevitable.
Does that fear affect how you make decisions now?
It does, but not in the way you'd expect. Fear can freeze a man. But me? I try to outrun it. Pretend I'm the one calling the shots, even when the ground's crumbling beneath my feet.
So, is it denial or something else?
Maybe a bit of both. I deny the fall to keep moving. But deep down, I'm always aware of how close I am to losing everything. Sometimes that makes me reckless, taking chances that don't make sense. But holding back? That feels like admitting defeat before the game's over.
Do you think pushing forward like that is sustainable?
I don't know. It's a dangerous dance, but it's the only way I know to feel alive. Better to face the fall head on than live in the fear of it.
At this point in the session, we see a deeply complex dynamic between Walter and this other figure he mentions. Someone chaotic. Unpredictable, yet strangely essential to him. Walter admits he's not always in control. Sometimes he's just trying not to lose this connection completely. This suggests a fragile balance, one that keeps him tethered but also unsettled. Psychologically, this points to an internal conflict between order and chaos, stability and vulnerability. When Walter talks about the future, there's a clear awareness of inevitable res, but he denies the possibility of defeat to keep moving forward, even if that means taking reckless chances. This denial isn't simple avoidance. It's a defense mechanism that lets him maintain a sense of agency in a life that feels increasingly out of control. What stands out is the emotional cost beneath this behavior. Walter's fear, denial, and recklessness are all attempts to avoid a deeper collapse, not just externally, but within his own sense of self. This precarious balance is both a survival strategy and a potential path to self-destruction. In the next part of the session, I want to gently move toward his core, who he believes he truly is. I want to ask you something simpler, maybe harder. Who do you think you are, beneath all of it?
That's not a simple question. That's the question. I used to think I was the good guy in a bad situation, a man trying to protect his family. That was a comfortable lie, comforting enough to get me through the first year. Then, I told myself I was building something, a legacy, something my son could look at someday and understand. But that was a lie too, a prettier one. You want the truth? I think I'm someone who found out he was capable of more than the world ever asked of him, and I didn't like what that said about the world, or about me.
Capable of what?
Control, violence, precision, deception. I was good at all of it. Too good. You know what no one tells you? Power's not a mask you put on. It's a mirror. It shows you who you really are.
And what did you see?
Someone cold, calculated, but also someone awake. I felt alive. That scared me more than the cancer ever did.
Alive because of what you were doing?
Alive because I stopped waiting. For permission. For fairness. For life to happen to me.
And the cost?
Everything. My wife, my son, myself maybe. But There's this sick part of me that keeps asking if it was worth it. And some days, I almost say yes.
Why?
Because I lived on my own terms, finally, even if those terms were monstrous.
You talk about control, but rarely about belief. Did you ever believe in anything outside yourself?
Science, at first, order, cause, and effect. You mix this with that, and you get something predictable. That was the last place the world still made sense to me. But even science lets you down when humans get involved.
And family?
I loved them. Still do, I think. But love isn't the same as goodness. I wanted to be a provider, but somewhere along the way, I became a judge. I started deciding what was best, not asking, just deciding. That's what it took. Someone had to make the calls. They didn't understand it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't love.
You said maybe you lost yourself. Do you think there's a way back?
I don't know if there's a self to go back to. I've burned too much of the map, but maybe if I'm honest about where I've been, someone else doesn't have to take the same path. Maybe that's the closest I get to redemption.
And if there isn't redemption,
then at least there's truth.
this final exchange revealed something essential. Walter has clarity, but not remorse. He understands the mechanisms of what he became, even names them: control, judgment,
I became a judge.
detachment, but he doesn't reject them. He justifies them as necessary. His language is precise, almost clinical at times. That tells me the emotional processing is still kept at a distance. He intellectualizes his choices, reframes harm as strategy and love as control, not in confusion, but in defense. He doesn't seek forgiveness. He seeks recognition. And he wants truth, but only on his terms. In clinical terms, that points to a personality that's integrated, but rigid, capable of reflection, but resistant to transformation.
Now, let's take a step back to see the bigger picture and find out what our experts' final thoughts are on this session and Walter White's character.
Throughout this session, Walter White has shown himself to be sharp, calculating, emotionally guarded, and deeply conflicted. His psychological profile is complex, but several key patterns are clear. First, he shows strong signs of narcissistic traits, not the loud, boastful kind. His version is quieter, more internal. He feels he's been overlooked his whole life, and everything he does seems aimed at proving his worth. Even when he talks about love or sacrifice, there's always a thread of needing to be seen as great. That need for validation and his inability to truly connect with others emotionally suggests covert narcissism, where deep insecurity hides under confidence and control. Second, we see clear antisocial traits. Walter lies, manipulates, and hurts people, but often justifies it as necessary or deserved. He doesn't seem to feel guilt in the way most people do. He's not impulsive or chaotic, but he uses people as tools to achieve his goals. This doesn't mean he has full antisocial personality disorder, but the traits are undeniably present. Third, control is central to how he functions. He's precise, perfectionistic, and often rigid in his thinking. These traits reflect obsessive personality patterns, not OCD, the kind with hand-washing or checking behaviors, but something deeper. A personality style built around needing control, order, and certainty. That control gives him stability, but also distances him from vulnerability and real connection. And finally, at the heart of all this, is a man searching for meaning. He struggles with identity, who he is beyond success or failure, beyond power or weakness. He's not just reacting to cancer or poverty, he's trying to prove something to the world and to himself. In the end, Walter White isn't just a criminal or a genius. He's someone who felt invisible for too long. And when he finally found power, he couldn't let go. He's self-aware, but not self-reflective. And that may be the barrier that keeps him from change.
That was our therapy session with Walter White. If you enjoyed this, or if it made you think, we've got more coming, more characters, more deep dives. Subscribe to Mind Session for more, and let us know in the comments who you'd like to see in the chair next.